a silent observer in the sky. The hum of aircraft engines droned in the background as Amelia Vasquez moved unnoticed through the glossy white floors of Skylux Airlines terminal at JFK International Airport. The air smelled of overpriced coffee and jet fuel, the constant chatter of passengers blending with the crackling announcements overhead. Dressed in a faded blue uniform, a cleaning cart rolling beside her, she blended into the background like hundreds of other workers whose presence was acknowledged only when something was out of place. But unlike the others, Amelia wasn't just a cleaning lady. No one knew that in less than a week, she would be announced as the new CEO of Skylux Airlines' parent company, the very corporation overseeing the airline's future. She had been sent on an undercover mission by the board to evaluate the real culture within the company. They didn't want polished reports or rehearsed speeches from HR, they wanted to see how things truly operated at the ground level. And so, here she was. Invisible. Her years of executive experience had taught her that a company's true nature wasn't revealed in boardrooms, it was exposed in the way its lowest-paid employees were treated. And what she had seen so far? It was appalling. A harsh reality. She was stationed at Gate 32, assigned to clean and maintain the first-class lounge and assist the cleaning crew for an upcoming Skylux Airlines flight to London. From the moment she had stepped into the area, she had felt the weight of judgmental stares. A blonde flight attendant with piercing blue eyes, her hair pulled into a tight, impeccable bun, barely looked at her as she ordered, "The VIP lounge needs to be spotless before our premium passengers arrive. And don't touch anything unless absolutely necessary." Her name tag read Vanessa Harper. Her tone carried the effortless authority of someone who assumed she was superior to those around her. Amelia offered a respectful nod. "Yes, ma'am." Vanessa barely acknowledged her and turned away, adjusting the golden wings pinned to her uniform. As Amelia moved through the first-class cabin, she felt the same silent dismissiveness. A young flight attendant, Corey Dunn, muttered to his colleague as she wiped down the aisle seats, "God, can't they clean when no one's around?" Another crew member scoffed, stepping past her with an annoyed huff. "I swear, they're hiring just about anyone these days." Every dismissive glance. Every whispered remark. Every arrogant assumption. She absorbed it all. They had no idea that the cleaning lady they so easily ignored held multiple Ivy League degrees and had personally led 3 successful airline turnarounds in the past decade. No one suspected she had spent the last 20 years in the aviation industry, sitting in executive meetings, negotiating billion-dollar contracts, and making decisions that shaped airlines worldwide. To them, she was just another invisible worker, another pair of hands cleaning up after their mess. And that realization disappointed her more than she expected. The final straw. As Amelia maneuvered her cleaning cart near the galley, an incident occurred that would cement her decision to shake the company to its core. She had just finished mopping a section of the floor when she heard a sharp voice behind her. "You." She turned, meeting the cold, sharp gaze of a senior flight purser, Jason Montgomery. He was a tall man, his salt and pepper hair neatly trimmed, his uniform crisp, radiating the air of a man who had long been accustomed to authority. "What are you doing just standing there?" he barked. "Get back to the service area. You're in the way." Amelia remained calm, her expression unreadable. "I just finished cleaning this area, sir." Jason let out an exaggerated sigh, shaking his head. "I swear, these workers are getting slower every year. Do you even understand English?" His words cut through the air like a blade. Around them, no one spoke up. No one defended her. Corey let out a chuckle, Vanessa smirked slightly but hid it behind her phone, and the rest of the crew pretended they hadn't heard anything. For a moment, Amelia felt the old familiar burn of anger in her chest. She had spent her entire life proving herself in a world that often judged first and asked questions later. She had sat at countless executive tables, where she had been dismissed, underestimated, and forced to prove herself again and again. But now? Now she had the power to do something about it. She breathed deeply, schooling her expression into polite obedience. "Yes, sir," she murmured, stepping aside. Jason barely gave her another glance as he strode toward the first-class seating area, chatting with Vanessa as if nothing had happened. They thought they had put her in her place. But what they didn't know was that their fates had just been sealed. The decision that would change everything. As she continued working through the cabin, her mind was already crafting a plan. Skylux Airlines had long struggled with passenger satisfaction, but what she had just witnessed revealed a deeper rot in the company's culture. She thought of the hundreds of other employees who had likely endured the same treatment: the maintenance workers, the janitors, the baggage handlers, the catering staff. If this was how they treated her, she could only imagine what everyday workers had to endure. And that would change. Because in just a few days, this cleaning lady would walk back into their lives. But next time, she wouldn't be pushing a cleaning cart. She would be sitting at the head of the executive table. And every single person in this room would soon learn what it meant to truly be seen. A lesson in respect. A moment of reflection. The last passengers had boarded, the business class seats gleamed under soft cabin lights, and flight attendants stood poised, ready to serve. The Skylux Airlines flight to London was minutes away from takeoff. And yet, as Amelia Vasquez stood near the back of the cabin, wiping down a small spill near the galley, she wasn't thinking about the flight. She was thinking about what had just happened. Jason Montgomery's voice still echoed in her mind. "Do you even understand English?" The condescension. The assumption that she was beneath them. The way no one had intervened. It wasn't just about her. How many others had endured this? How many of Skylux's lowest-paid workers, janitors, baggage handlers, service staff, had suffered the same disdain, arrogance, and quiet cruelty? She wasn't just here to observe anymore. She was here to rebuild this company from the ground up, starting with the people who thought they were untouchable. A disturbance in first class. The boarding process was almost complete when a commotion erupted in the first-class section. From her position near the service area, Amelia watched as an elderly black woman in an elegant navy blue coat stepped into first class, a boarding pass in hand. Immediately, Vanessa Harper, the same flight attendant who had dismissed Amelia earlier, blocked the woman's path with an artificial smile. "I think you're in the wrong section, ma'am," Vanessa said, her voice laced with condescension. The older woman frowned. "No, dear, I believe this is my seat." Vanessa barely glanced at the ticket. "First class is reserved for our premium members and business travelers. Economy seating is just behind." Before she could finish, a businessman seated nearby spoke up. "Excuse me, is there a problem?" he asked, frowning at Vanessa's tone. The elderly woman held up her ticket, a golden Skylux Elite pass glinting under the lights. "I've been flying first class for years," she said firmly. A beat of silence passed before Vanessa's smile flickered. She took the ticket, scanned it, and her expression shifted. "Oh," she said stiffly. "I see. My apologies, Mrs. Caldwell. Please, allow me to show you to your seat." The woman, Dr. Margaret Caldwell, Amelia realized, lifted her chin with quiet dignity and walked past Vanessa, settling into her seat. But the damage had already been done. And Amelia? She had seen enough. A flight crew unaware of what's coming. The crew continued their final preparations, oblivious to the storm brewing behind Amelia's calm expression. She had already made a decision. No more quiet observation. No more silently cataloging their behavior. This was the last flight these employees would take before their world turned upside down. By the time this plane landed in London, the people who sneered, dismissed, and disrespected others would learn the cost of their arrogance. And Amelia Vasquez, the woman they had ignored, would be the one delivering that lesson. A meeting with the captain. 30 minutes later, as the plane reached cruising altitude, Amelia excused herself under the pretense of checking the crew lounge area. Instead, she walked straight to the cockpit, where the captain, Robert Hastings, was reviewing flight data. The moment he saw her, he frowned. "Cleaning staff shouldn't be up here," he said. Amelia's calm expression never wavered. With one smooth movement, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a gold-embossed business card. The Skylux Airlines CEO's personal business card. She handed it to him. The captain blinked. Then his entire face drained of color as he read the name printed on it. Amelia Vasquez, incoming CEO, Skylux Airlines parent company. "You might want to sit down, Captain Hastings," she said smoothly. "We have some things to discuss." The turbulence of truth. The captain's shock. Captain Robert Hastings had been a pilot for over 20 years. He had flown across continents, weathered storms, and navigated through some of the most complex airspaces in the world. But nothing, not even the most severe turbulence, had prepared him for this moment. His fingers tightened around the gold-embossed business card, his eyes flickering between it and the woman standing before him. Amelia Vasquez. He had barely noticed her when she was walking through the cabin, quietly cleaning up after the passengers and crew. Like the others, he had dismissed her as nothing more than a low-level worker, someone unimportant. But now, standing in his cockpit, her calm gaze boring into him, it was clear, he had severely underestimated her. "Ms. Vasquez, his voice cracked slightly, and he cleared his throat. "I don't understand." Amelia stepped forward, her presence commanding yet unshaken. "Let me help you, Captain," she said smoothly. "I'm not a cleaning lady. I'm the new CEO of Skylux's parent company, and I've spent the last 3 days undercover, observing how your airline operates." Captain Hastings' mouth opened, then closed. 1,000 thoughts raced through his mind. She wasn't joking. This was real. And if it was real, that meant... Oh, no. He could already feel the weight of the implications crashing down on him like a violent storm. What exactly were you observing?" he asked hesitantly. Amelia's expression remained unreadable. "Everything." A sharp knock at the cockpit door interrupted the tense silence. "Captain?" Vanessa Harper's voice rang out. "The passengers in 3A and 3B are asking for champagne, and..." She paused, then added, "and we need the cleaning lady too." Amelia smiled. She turned to Captain Hastings. "I think it's time for a little turbulence," she said. And then she pulled the door open. The crew's moment of reckoning. Vanessa Harper's polished appearance and practiced airline smile vanished the second she laid eyes on Amelia, who stood in the doorway of the cockpit. The rest of the flight crew, Jason Montgomery, Brittany Parker, and David Mitchell, had gathered near the galley, their chatter cutting off mid-sentence as they saw the cleaning lady standing beside the captain. And in her hand? A business card with the CEO's name on it. A sinking feeling filled Vanessa's stomach. "Ms. Vasquez?" she asked, her voice hesitant. "I see you finally know my name," Amelia replied smoothly, watching as confusion, shock, and horror flashed across their faces. Jason took a half-step forward, trying to recover. This must be some kind of misunderstanding," he stammered. "You're telling me that you're the new CEO?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you," Amelia said, folding her arms. "Would you like to explain the way you've treated me over the past 3 days? Or should I just pull up the surveillance footage later?" Brittany let out a nervous laugh, but the sound died quickly in her throat. Amelia tilted her head. "No? No words? That's interesting, considering you had so much to say when you thought I was just a janitor." Silence. Vanessa swallowed hard. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Vasquez," she said, her tone suddenly respectful, her hands clasped in front of her. "I had no idea who you were." Amelia raised an eyebrow. "And if I was still just a cleaning lady? Would you still be sorry?" Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed. That was answer enough. Jason looked pale. David shifted uncomfortably. Amelia glanced at all of them, then took a slow breath. "Here's what's going to happen," she said, her voice even but commanding. "This flight will continue to London as scheduled. When we land, every single one of you will report to corporate headquarters for a meeting." Jason's face drained of color. "I hope you all enjoyed your time at Skylux Airlines," Amelia continued, her voice like steel, "because by the time we land, you might not have jobs anymore." The tension in the cabin was suffocating. David tried to protest. "Ms. Vasquez, please, we were just following protocol." "We didn't." "You didn't think," Amelia cut in sharply. "That was your mistake." An announcement to the passengers. With that, Amelia turned and walked past the stunned flight attendants, stepping into the first-class cabin. Passengers glanced up, curious. She picked up the intercom and pressed the button. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Amelia Vasquez," she said, her voice steady. "You don't know me, but as of this week, I am the new CEO of Skylux Airlines' parent company." There were murmurs of surprise among the passengers. "I have spent the past several days undercover as a cleaning staff member," she continued. "And what I witnessed was unacceptable." She let her gaze drift across the stunned flight attendant standing nearby. "This company is about to change," she said firmly. "And that change starts now." A few of the passengers broke into applause. Others looked shocked. The flight crew stood frozen, as though hoping they could disappear into thin air. But Amelia wasn't done yet. She turned, locked eyes with Vanessa, Jason, and the others, and delivered her final words of the night. "Your time at Skylux has just hit some turbulence. Let's see if you survive the landing." And with that, she walked back to her seat, leaving the crew to tremble at what was coming next. A landing they'll never forget. The weight of silence. The cabin was eerily quiet as the flight continued its journey toward London. A thick tension hung in the air, pressing down on the crew like an invisible force. Vanessa Harper sat stiffly near the galley, gripping the edge of the counter so hard her knuckles turned white. Jason Montgomery stood beside her, his usually smug expression completely drained of color. Brittany Parker's nails tapped nervously against her tray. David Mitchell, normally full of overconfidence, stared blankly at the floor. They had all mocked Amelia Vasquez. Ignored her. Belittled her. And now, she held their careers in her hands. The captain's plea. In the cockpit, Captain Hastings was still reeling from the news. The idea that Amelia, a woman they had all dismissed as a cleaning lady, was the CEO of Skylux Airlines' parent company was unbelievable. But it was real. And the implications were devastating. He turned to his co-pilot, Rick Samuels, who looked equally stunned. "What do you think she's going to do?" Rick asked hesitantly. Hastings shook his head, his jaw clenched. "I don't know," he admitted. "But if she's been watching us for 3 days, it's not going to be good." He had seen CEOs come and go. Most were corporate suits who hid behind boardroom doors, making decisions from miles away. But Amelia? She had walked among them. Seen their failures firsthand. There was no escaping this. Taking a deep breath, he pushed the intercom button. "Ms. Vasquez," he said, his voice carefully measured. "May I have a word with you in the cockpit?" A long pause. Then, her voice crackled through the speaker. "I'll be right there." A conversation at 39,000 feet. A few minutes later, Amelia stepped into the cockpit, her expression calm but unreadable. Captain Hastings rose from his seat, offering her the space beside him. She didn't take it. I wanted to apologize, he started. I realize now that we... Captain, she interrupted, her voice steady. Are you apologizing because you regret your actions? Or because you regret getting caught? Hastings opened his mouth, then shut it again. She had cut right to the truth. Amelia sighed, crossing her arms. I'm not interested in excuses. I need to know if you and your team are capable of change. The captain swallowed hard. This airline means everything to me, he admitted. I started as a co-pilot here 2 decades ago. I love flying, I love what we do, but I won't lie to you. The culture here, it's been toxic for a while. Amelia nodded slowly. And you? She asked, glancing at Rick Samuels. Are you part of that culture? Rick shook his head quickly. I've seen it happen, but I didn't do anything to stop it. He swallowed. That's just as bad, isn't it? Amelia didn't answer. She simply stared at them both for a long moment before saying, When we land in London, there will be a meeting at headquarters. Decisions will be made. I suggest you think very carefully about the kind of pilots you want to be moving forward. And with that, she turned on her heel and left. Hastings and Samuel sat in silence, the reality of their situation sinking in. The flight crew's breaking point. Back in the cabin, Vanessa, Jason, Brittany, and David were whispering frantically near the galley. We have to do something, Jason hissed. There's nothing we can do, Brittany snapped, her face pale. She's the CEO. She could fire us all with one phone call. She's bluffing, David muttered. Vanessa shook her head. No, she's not. Jason turned to her, desperate. Then what do we do? Vanessa hesitated. I don't know, she admitted. But when we land in London, our lives are about to change. They fell silent, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. For the first time in their careers, they weren't in control. Amelia Vasquez was. And they had no idea what she was going to do next. Touchdown in London. As the plane descended through the thick gray clouds, the passengers chatted excitedly, oblivious to the turmoil happening among the crew. But in the galley? In the cockpit? Among the flight attendants? Every single employee knew. When those wheels hit the ground, the real turbulence would begin. As soon as they landed at Heathrow, Amelia stood up and grabbed her bag. She turned to the crew one last time and said 4 simple words. Meet me at headquarters. Then, without looking back, she stepped off the plane. Leaving them terrified of what was coming next. The reckoning at headquarters. The walk of shame. The flight attendants, pilots, and senior crew members of Skylux Airlines walked in silence through the grand glass doors of their London headquarters. Their once proud strides were now stiff and hesitant, their usual air of confidence completely shattered. Brittany Parker, usually poised and full of herself, clutched her purse tightly, her hands clammy with sweat. David Mitchell, who had spent years looking down on people he deemed beneath him, now kept his eyes locked on the floor, his mind racing. Jason Montgomery, who once scoffed at cleaning staff, now felt as insignificant as dust. Captain Hastings and co-pilot Rick Samuels were at the back, their shoulders heavy with the knowledge that their entire careers hung in the balance. And leading the way? Amelia Vasquez. She walked with purpose, her head high, her dark eyes scanning the room as they entered the executive boardroom, a massive, imposing space with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the London skyline. At the center of the room sat a long, polished mahogany table, surrounded by sleek, black leather chairs. And at the far end of the table sat a group of corporate executives from Globe Sky Enterprises, the parent company of Skylux Airlines. These were the people who held the true power. And today, Amelia was one of them. The crew members took their seats, but no one spoke. The tension was unbearable. And then, finally, Amelia broke the silence. "Tell me why I should keep you." She leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table, her gaze locked onto them. Then, in a voice cold as steel, she asked. "Tell me why I should keep any of you." Brittany let out a shaky breath. "Ms. Vasquez, I—" Amelia raised a hand, silencing her instantly. "No excuses," she said sharply. "No justifications. No empty apologies. I want to hear why you think you deserve to remain employees of this airline." A heavy silence followed. The crew fidgeted in their seats. Then, Captain Hastings cleared his throat. "With all due respect, Ms. Vasquez, I've been a pilot for over 20 years. I've dedicated my life to this airline. Yes, I admit that the culture needs to change, but you did nothing to change it," Amelia interrupted. "You watched your flight crew mock, ignore, and belittle someone they perceived as a lowly cleaning lady. And you, a leader, stood by and said nothing." Hastings swallowed hard. Amelia turned her gaze to Brittany Parker. "You," she said. "What do you have to say for yourself?" Brittany shifted uncomfortably. I was just doing my job. I didn't think." "That's exactly the problem," Amelia cut in. "You didn't think. You didn't care. You treated me like I was invisible, and if that's how you treat an undercover CEO, I can only imagine how you treat your passengers." Brittany winced, but she couldn't argue. Amelia's eyes moved to Jason Montgomery and David Mitchell. "Jason," she said coolly. "You spilled coffee on me, on purpose. And David, you barely even acknowledged me when I spoke to you. Do you understand what that tells me?" Neither man answered. "It tells me that this airline is failing at its core. That the very people in charge of ensuring passenger satisfaction have no respect for human beings." Jason swallowed. "Ms. Vasquez. I made a mistake." "No," Amelia said. "You made a choice." Another silence fell over the room. Amelia exhaled, sitting back in her chair. "I could fire every single one of you right now," she said bluntly. "And honestly? You deserve it." Brittany gasped quietly. Jason clenched his jaw. Captain Hastings stared at the table, his face unreadable. Then, Amelia added, "But I'm not going to." The crew members visibly tensed. Brittany blinked in confusion. "You're not?" Amelia shook her head. "Firing you would be too easy," she said. "Because if I fire you, you'll just walk away thinking I was the villain. Thinking I was some ruthless CEO who had it out for you." She leaned forward again, her dark eyes gleaming. "No," she said. "I want you to learn. I want you to change. And I want you to earn your place at this airline." Brittany and the others stared at her in disbelief. The ultimatum. Amelia stood up, slowly pacing around the room. "I've decided that all of you will undergo mandatory retraining." Brittany furrowed her brows. "Retraining?" "Yes," Amelia confirmed. "A 6-week intensive program on customer service, leadership, and respect." She turned to Captain Hastings. "You will undergo leadership development training and be personally mentored by one of our top executives." She glanced at Brittany, Jason, David, and Vanessa. "The rest of you? You will be required to work alongside airport staff, including cleaning crews, baggage handlers, and ground support, for 1 month." Jason visibly paled. "We have to work with." "Yes," Amelia cut in. "You will experience what it's like to be in their shoes. You will see firsthand what it feels like to be dismissed. Ignored. Treated as less than." She crossed her arms. "After those 6 weeks, we will evaluate your progress. If any of you fail to show significant improvement, you will be terminated immediately." Brittany's face turned ghost white. David's throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. Jason looked like he had been punched in the gut. Amelia let the silence stretch before delivering her final words. "This is not a punishment," she said. "This is an opportunity. Either take it and prove that you deserve to be here, or walk away now." She gave them a long, meaningful look. "The choice is yours." And with that, she turned and walked out of the boardroom, leaving them to face their own fate. Redemption or ruin? Day 1 of retraining. The morning sun barely peeked over the horizon when the disgraced flight crew arrived at Heathrow Airport. There were no elegant uniforms today. No badges of rank. No smug smiles or superiority. Instead, Brittany Parker, Jason Montgomery, David Mitchell, Vanessa Carter, and Captain Hastings all wore bright orange safety vests, the same kind worn by baggage handlers, janitors, and ground crew. They felt exposed, vulnerable, and worst of all, powerless. As they stood near the loading docks, awaiting their first assignment, a middle-aged man with calloused hands and a thick Irish accent approached them. "All right, listen up," he barked. "Name's Frank Delaney. I've been working airport ground operations for over 25 years. I've seen it all, the best and the worst of this industry. And I can tell you right now, you lot are the worst." Brittany winced. Jason gritted his teeth. Frank continued. "You thought cleaning crews, baggage handlers, and ground staff were beneath you? Well, guess what?" His voice hardened. "Today, you're one of us." The crew shifted uncomfortably. Frank smirked. "You don't like that, do ya?" No one answered. He let the silence linger before clapping his hands together. "Good. Now grab a broom, grab a mop, and get to work. From first class to floor scrubbing. The first assignment? Cleaning airport bathrooms." Brittany, who once refused to pick up her own coffee cup, now stood frozen before a row of toilet stalls. The overpowering stench of bleach mixed with something far worse hit her nose. She gagged. I don't think I can do this," she stammered. Frank chuckled. "Oh, sweetheart, you should have thought of that before treating our cleaning staff like dirt." With no other choice, Brittany reluctantly grabbed a mop. Jason and David weren't spared either. They were assigned to the baggage loading area, where they had to lift and load hundreds of heavy suitcases onto conveyor belts. Sweat dripped down Jason's forehead. His arms ached. "Do you have any idea how heavy these things are?" he muttered. A baggage handler next to him, a young woman barely 5 feet tall, glanced at him and smirked. "Yeah," she said. "I do this every day. Welcome to the real world, pretty boy." David groaned as he lifted another massive suitcase. "This is inhumane." The baggage handler rolled her eyes. "No, this is your life now." Meanwhile, Captain Hastings had been given an assignment he never expected. He wasn't cleaning. He wasn't lifting baggage. He was shadowing a flight attendant. Captain Hastings learns the truth. As Hastings followed Emily Garcia, a senior flight attendant, through the airport terminal, she didn't hold back. "You pilots have it easy," she said. "You get in, do your checks, fly the plane, and leave. Meanwhile, flight attendants like me?" She stopped, turned to him, and crossed her arms. "We deal with everything. Rude passengers. Entitled businessmen. Crying babies. Emergencies. And worst of all, disrespectful pilots who don't even acknowledge us." Hastings felt a pang of guilt. He had never thought about it that way. He had always believed that pilots were the elite, the backbone of the airline. But now, watching Emily handle customer complaints, delays, and rude travelers, all with a smile, he realized. Flight attendants did far more than just serve drinks. And for the first time, he felt ashamed. The first realization. By the end of the first day, the crew members were exhausted. Brittany's arms ached from scrubbing. Jason and David's backs throbbed from lifting. Hastings felt mentally drained. And Vanessa? She sat in the break room, head in her hands, realizing just how cruel she had been to passengers in the past. They had all looked down on the people who made the airline run. And now? They were on the other side. The breaking point. By the end of the second week, things only got worse. The workload didn't get easier. Jason had developed blisters on his hands from handling baggage. Brittany had suffered 2 breakdowns after customers insulted her for not cleaning fast enough. David had almost quit when he was told to clean the inside of an aircraft after a flight full of rowdy tourists left it in ruins. But the worst moment? It came on week 3. During a particularly rough shift, Brittany overheard a group of Skylux flight attendants gossiping near the break room. "Did you hear about Brittany and Jason?" one of them sneered. "They're cleaning toilets now." Another one laughed. "Karma's A.B." Brittany snapped. She stormed over, slamming her mop against the floor. "You think this is funny?" she hissed. "You think it's funny that we're suffering?" The flight attendants looked at her, shocked. Brittany's chest heaved with anger. "No," she continued. "You know what's funny? I used to be just like you. Laughing at the people I thought were beneath me. Thinking I was better." She gritted her teeth, her hands trembling. "And now? I've been cleaning toilets for weeks. And you know what I realized?" She took a deep breath. "These workers? They're better than us." Silence. The flight attendants didn't know what to say. Brittany wiped her face and turned away, heading back to finish her shift. But inside? She knew something had changed. The turning point. By week 4, something unexpected happened. The crew members stopped complaining. Brittany no longer hesitated before grabbing the mop. Jason no longer rolled his eyes at lifting suitcases. David started treating cleaning crews with respect. Hastings thanked every flight attendant he worked with. And Vanessa? She started helping nervous passengers without being asked. For the first time in their careers, they understood what it meant to serve. And Amelia Vasquez was watching. The final evaluation. At the end of 6 grueling weeks, the crew was called back to Skylux headquarters. Amelia sat at the same long mahogany table, her expression unreadable. She studied them carefully. Then, after a long pause, she spoke. "I have your reports," she said. "And I have made my decision." The room went still. Then, Amelia looked up. "Some of you will stay." Brittany held her breath. Jason clutched the edge of his chair. David felt his stomach drop. "And some of you?" Amelia continued. She met their eyes, one by one. "You will be leaving Skylux Airlines forever."